this is Cara from Popcorn Horror and welcome to a bonus episode of our Disability and Horror Month video series. Originally, we had planned for RJ Bailey to host all of the episodes, but after coming across this British indie horror, I wanted to talk about it during our campaign. There will be spoilers ahead for the film Cruel Summer, but we'll try to keep them somewhat vague. Cruel Summer takes place in rural Wales and is disturbingly based on a true story. Danny, a young autistic man, sets out on a camping trip which ends in torture and bloodshed when a local teenager's lies about him get out of control. It's a brutal stalk and kill type horror film grounded in realism in the vein of Deliverance or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Much of the discussion about the film has been focused on its violence, and yes, it is violent, but not to an unrealistic level. Weighing in as an autistic person, while I've thankfully not been the victim of anything to this degree, I have known disabled friends to experience violent hate crimes. Shoving into cupboards, locking in rooms, throwing stones, breaking glasses, mostly that sort of thing, but it's not difficult to imagine these types of incidents escalating. Phillip Escott, the director of the film, talked to us about the violence and the experience of filming and editing it.
Watching it in the editing suite, that's when it became difficult, because then you have the story as a whole in front of you when you realise what is happening. When you're filming it, you just have that scene, that fragment. It's not cohesive, it doesn't all tie in together. So when you're there in the editing suite and you realise the power of what you have, that's when it starts to strike a chord. And that's when you need to start to become rational and realise the power of the images. So that's when you start reining back on the levels of violence that you show. Because, yeah, the film could have been a lot more violent than the finished product, but it wasn't because it didn't need to be. I mean, in some instances, less truly is more, and I think this is a very good case of that.
So Cruel Summer is certainly a story worth telling, perhaps even more so in the digital age where teenagers have constant access to social media and cyberbullying is on the rise. Philip told us more about the true story and its translation to the screen.
Well, it wasn't so much that the true story inspired us to make the film. Initially, the initial idea behind the film was to explore random violence and how that occurred. And as a result of that, and our research into random violence, that's where we started learning about these stories, and it all morphed and became from our research into random violence. So the initial plan was to create a film where someone wakes up in the morning, ends up dead at the end of the day. And on the flip side, the other alternative is someone wakes up in the morning, goes to bed a murderer, and trying to find a way of interjecting those stories. So I guess the Terry Hurst sort of case was a good avenue for that, because the poor guy was out camping, but in the true life case, I mean, it was all premeditated, it was a cold-hearted murder. They went with him purposely, they all went camping together. So if we were to take that one story and make a film about that, it'd be unfilmable. It's just a diabolical, heinous crime that there'd be nothing in that would be of merit or even redeeming. So that was never an option, really. We didn't think of making that one murder into a feature film. It had to be its own entity, and that's why the research into other random acts of violence came in handy, especially when it comes to the bullying and the peer pressure.
While Cruel Summer is influenced by this particular crime, it does take some deviation from actual events. It isn't supposed to be a biographical horror, rather a larger story about bullying, random acts of violence, and how ordinary people can become the monsters from horror films. Speaking of the monsters, Cruel Summer does a great job with its young antagonists. Often teenagers in horror, especially teenagers as villains, come across like teenagers written by people who don't remember being a teenager. These characters are realistic and representative of Britain's social and economic inequalities. They sneer at the possibility of getting into university because they know that people in their area don't have a fair chance. They're still the source of horror, but there is an explanation for their lack of empathy. It's Danny's character that's of the most interest though. Richard Pawlowski did much of the research into how to portray Danny's autistic traits. I think it is important to remember that any character can only represent one person's experience with disability, and Danny or any other autistic character might not necessarily have everything in common with an autistic person that you know. We can recognise that Danny has difficulty processing speech and understanding nuances in conversation. With Sheldon Cooper having sealed the fate of autistic characters to be technology experts, it's refreshing to see a character who doesn't fall into this stereotype. Danny's special interest is the outdoors, hiking, orienteering and getting away from the chaos of society. He has goals and passions, he has a close relationship with his parents, which makes his fate more upsetting. Crucially, he's a character, not a representation of a disability. Here's Philip telling us more about Danny's character development.
He did all the legwork for us, so to be honest, all the props and the kudos should go to him. What we did in the script writing phase was identify at that point in time, back in 2013 when we were writing, there wasn't much awareness, so that's what we wanted to bring.
With regard to Danny's character, there is perhaps one aspect that I might have liked to pan out differently. Probably not all autistic viewers would agree, but I think that having the rumour about Danny actually be true would have added something to the film. Without giving too much away, I do understand what the filmmakers were going for in keeping Danny an innocent victim of senseless violence. But had he not been completely innocent, the violence inflicted would still be horrific and unjustified. It might have given a tiny bit more depth to an otherwise well-developed autistic character, and steered a little further from the association of disability and innocence as childlike qualities. Pretty small criticism, however, of an otherwise brutal and emotional British horror film that we highly recommend checking out during Disability and Horror Month. A huge thank you for watching, and to Phillip Escott for talking to us about the film. To find out more about Disability and Horror Month, as well as daily horror content, check out popcornhorror.com and visit us on Twitter and Facebook. We're like BuzzFeed if it was run by Wednesday Addams. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and helping us grow the channel.